G'day everybody. Today's video I am going to be walking you through my skirmish game that I've been working on, Fragged Double Tap. Obviously set within the Fragged Empire universe. So in this video I'm going to walk you through the rules, how to play it, and but before I did that I thought might be worth answering one, why am I, somebody who's primarily known for RPG works, doing a skirmish game? Most of you guys are RPGers. Um, and if you are an RPG and you're not a skirmish gamer, that's all cool. You still might find this video interesting. So I want to walk through, why am I doing a game like this? Why aren't I sticking to RPGs? And secondarily, the bit of the history of this project, because it has, oddly enough, a history that is quite long, probably about as long as Fragged Empire. So it sort of might be worth having a look into that a little bit. So firstly, why a war game? So as a lot of people know, and I think you might share, this is not a particularly original idea. I always thought of board games, miniature war games, trading card games, and RPGs as cousins, all related to each other. Not just because people who are often interested in one of these is might be interested in another couple of these, but also because they share a lot with each other. Like the game designers who work in one will often work in the other. They're often taking ideas from each other, not just in terms of rules, but also world building. They draw from the same, very similar, if not the same, pools of inspiration. I mean, famously, D&D started off as Chainmail, which was a miniature war game. And most of us probably grew up doing all four of these hobbies in some way, because I know I did. For myself, I'm firmly in the RPG camp. That's my primary thing. But I have a special love for board games and miniature war games. Fortunately, I don't get to play many trading card games these days. Although I'll play some MTG if someone's got some pre-made commander decks for me to have some fun with. So yeah, and anyone who knows Fragged knows that Fragged is very open and upfront about it is best played with miniatures on a grid for its combat. So it's which is a little bit unusual for an indie RPG. Often they don't do that sort of stuff. Um, but so I've wanted to make a miniature game for a long, long time, but I've often struggled. And I view this as to get a game to work, you need these three things. This is not like you need two of them. No, you need all three of these. Firstly, you've got to have created something that's fun. Okay, something that you as a designer really enjoy. You think it's fun. It sort of gets the passion going. Another thing is you've got to work out your production side of this. How is this going to be made? This obviously gets really easy if it's just like a PDF or it's digital only. But as soon as you start dealing with physical things, the complexities get larger and larger, and the more pieces you've got. See, even though Fragged is a really big project in terms of like hardcover books and PDFs, it's actually not that hard in terms of production once you've figured it out. But a war game has lots of different bits to it, okay? Because there's lots of different models, and how do I produce those in a cost-effective means to a good quality, and how do I get them to people, okay? Because I don't have access to game stores and stuff like that. I'm trying to figure that side out. And the third one is there an audience? So you may find it fun as a designer, and you may have figured out the production side of it. What does this resonate with an audience? So this draws on the other two. Do they find it fun? Is it cost effective? Is it accessible for them to get the product? But also, is the rules something that they can grasp and they enjoy? But also, is it deep? Does it hold on to them? And so I don't know. I feel like I've been many years of working on a war game. I've been trying to get these three, and so let's walk through a little bit of my history with trying to make a skirmish game, because I have actually fully designed, prototype, tested, and created about 3 versions of this game. Okay, and that's not counting the last partial designs. I fully made about 3 versions of this. So, but I always had problems. One is I never quite felt like the games were exciting enough. So my first foray was back in 2015, right when I made the books. My first Kickstarter, I very quickly got a miniature made of Rachel because I love miniatures. Okay, but this is back in the day where, to me, to get one 3D printed master sculpt for her was about $400. Okay, it's really expensive. And then they would make the molds and they do like resin and stuff like that, which created excellent quality miniature, but very expensive to produce, an awful lot of work. And so a little bit inhibitive of that, like good for like if you're really wanting something fancy or nice, little boutique sort of miniature. And then after that, I ended up making a game, 2 different versions of the game. So these ones were very much to do with, you had a deck of cards and you would build cards, like you would have a hand of cards, and then you would sort of play abilities come out. As you rolled a 6, you could play a card basically. And it was very, it was almost like a trading card game in the sense of like your deck building was a massive component of it. And it was incredibly, it was too cerebral. I think that was the problem why I never felt like these previous versions were fun. Like it was too much of a mind game. And in that sense, I mean that most of the game was actually happening in your head and not on a table in front of you. And then after 2022, so I sort of made my second version of this game. And I just wasn't quite finding it wasn't quite exciting or fun enough. And the production side was still too difficult. Like it's too difficult to get these miniatures made and the cards and everything into people's hands. And then came along 3D printing. In terms of 3D printing, became a lot more accessible. And so that was pretty exciting. And then after this, I ended up spending a lot of time redoing my thinking about a miniature war game. Just spending a lot of time in the creative void, unpicking a lot of my expectations, and I came up with something I thought was significantly more fun. No more cards in your hand, very much a rules light version of the game. In terms of the core rules, were incredibly light, just and the 3D printing making everything much more accessible. I started up a Patreon that got excited. That showed me there's a bit of an audience. Okay. And I started hitting these 3 things. One is this new version. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to play again after every single time I played. 2, new production methods made production a lot more exciting. And 3, I was getting resonance from people out there that there was an audience for this sort of a game. And so that's what ended up with this final version. So we're going to dive into the rules for Double Tap to sort of give you guys an idea of it. But quick overview. This here, this is a slightly older version. This is effectively the entire core rules of the game. It's on 2 sides of an A4 sheet of paper. And I've got a full rule book with like diagrams and it's more fleshed out and sort of examples and stuff like that. But this is effectively it. Okay. Because I want that game that is easy to get into, but then I want to go deeper. So where do I get the depth from? The depth comes from the character card. So each of your characters will come with a card, and these all have varying amounts of complexity to them, special rules. Some are very simple, some are a bit deeper. And then this is where you can get the nuance and how you build your team and the complexity, the tactical depth in the game. So let's walk through the rule book. So this here is the rule book. And it's basically just walking you through how to play the game. Okay. And it's effectively really quite simple. In this game, you have your board which is by default 30 inches by 30 inches. It can be larger for a larger point game. And you have 45 points to select your force. You create a force out of characters and upgrades and specialists and henchmen and upgrades. And you can select your own mission objective in here. And then each person will take turns activating a character. I activate, and then you activate, and on your turn, you can activate any character you want, including the same one, again and again. And on your turn, when you're activating a character, you have 2 actions to select from here, each of them with a different attack value and a different move value. Then, if any unit ends their activation within line of sight of another character, they'll be able to trigger a reaction to them. The game ends once both players have taken 20 activations. And the winner is the person who controls the most objectives. So default in the game, you've got 3 objective markers down the middle of the board. If you end your activation within 2 of them, you capture the objective. As long as you outnumber the opponents within 2 of that objective as well. You can then move away, the objective stays yours. And then at the end of the game, whoever's got 2 out of the 3 wins. Now, there are also a way you can alter these objectives. So each player can take 1 tactical card, and this swaps out an objective for something else or alters the objective. So it might be like an assassinate mission or an escort mission or a hold the line or a breakthrough and stuff like that. To deal damage, you just roll that number of d6. If you get advantage, you add an extra d6. If you have disadvantage, you will roll 1 less die. So, for example, you can see here, advantage versus no cover. So if the opponent's got no cover, you roll an extra d6. And you cause damage on a roll of a 6. Here's their health. Once the health reaches 0, they're removed from the board. Now, that's it. Like, that's the rules. That's everything that you need to play. Now, of course, there's some special stuff. So, for example, some characters have special rules. For example, Grandma here deals extra damage versus characters at full health. You've got splash attacks, so it can kind of damage multiple people with 1 roll. You've got some attacks that don't require line of sight. Some, okay. So, I mean, that's it. And I love that it's so light here. So let's jump into some specifics here. So I'm going to open up Tabletop Simulator. So we have the game in Tabletop Simulator. You can play it right now. This is one that I've got from a friend and I. We played a game together, and I've sort of reset our board. Now, this here is my side, and oops. Hey. You wait, trying to figure out the controls. There we go. Okay, so you can see that you've got my force here, and these here are the specialists. They sort of have the picture there. They're kind of a bit more like your higher point heroic type characters. You can only have 1 of each of those in your force. You can mix and match them wherever you want. And then I've got some henchmen down here. So henchmen are kind of your lower points, lower health kind of mooks. Good for sort of zone control, being a bit defensive, or you want to fill a particular gap. You can take any one of those. So you can see I've actually got 3 henchmen here. 3 soldiers. Okay? And then I've got 1 tactical card, which is Protect the VIP. So what this does is it removes an objective from the board at the start of the game. And then if this character's alive at the end of the game, I get a point. If she's dead, the opponent gets a point. And this is my opponent's team over here. So he actually has a couple of upgrades. So you can see here for this upgrade, it's got these little arrows. So this means that the top thing applies to this character to the left, and this arrow here applies to this character to the right. He's also got a character with a bit of a weird upgrade thing that also upgrades adjacent cards. Oh man, I love this hound. This hound is so good. So not exactly the biggest damage dealer because it's a very melee character, and can't capture objectives. But its reaction, it gets a move, and it allows an ally to move. So if anybody moves within its line of sight, he sort of helps coordinate your team. This character here comes with a couple of free turrets as a henchman as well. This guy, when he dies, the Ravenous Beast, he explodes and turns into two hordes. And then his tactical card is Assassinate, which is, it's kind of, that's a good counter to my Protect VIP, because then they can apply that to the same character, and then they just need to hunt that character and they win the game. Cool. So this is the board. Generally, you're wanting a lot of terrain, lots of line of sight breaking, lots of stuff for help with like sort of break up movement. So the way that movement works when you activate a character, I will show you. So this guy, we're going to do assault rifle. So that's 5 movement and attack of 5d6. So we'll move the soldier. It moves him 5. And then if someone's in line of sight, and then roll the dice. And then they move, and then I move. And then I can move him again. Now, the way that terrain works, so as soon as you enter or exit terrain, unless stated otherwise, your movement ends straight away. Don't worry about horizontal distances. And then if he exited, he would stop straight away. Cool. Okay, so that is effectively the game. I just use a D20 for like a turn tracker. And let's have a look at some of the cards. So this is just to give you a bit of an idea of what you're working through. So your teams, you've got 45 points to make up your team. Cool. Okay, so Suave Administrator, his main thing is that he has a thing where he allows 2 allies to move 4 when he activates. This movement here doesn't trigger reactions from the allies. And he has a very, very nasty melee attack, but it has a tiny movement. So it's more like a counter attack, or if you can somehow give him a little boost in movement, if he can get close to someone, he just destroys them. Brutal Fixer has the ability to bribe an enemy henchman, so steals them and makes the henchman yours. Neon Hacker is great, doesn't require line of sight, including their reaction. Glamorous Socialite, a bit of a trickier character, very little cheaper, but fine. Can interact with objectives from further away, is resistant to reactions, and allows an ally to move and trigger their reaction. So not a great offensive character, but like a scalpel, okay? When you need something very precise there and you want to counter a heavy reaction team. The Guardian Rancher comes with the turrets, as I said before. Sentinel. So this is, we're getting the Kaltorans here. So this guy allows you and anyone on your team to trigger reactions at the start of an enemy's line of sight. The start of their activation rather than the end. Grandma, damage dealer. Yep. Rambunctious Engineer, very good all-rounder, but with a particularly nasty experimental bomb, if you can pull that off. Glory Hog, he loves to be seen. So he does like a splash versus everyone that he can see within his shorter range, and this one gets a bonus per unit that can see him. Okay, so he wants to be out in the open. Countered by heavy reaction teams for obvious reasons. Dirtbag Vagabond has a HMG that deals damage, but for every damage she does cause, she can roll another attack. So you can really exploding dice. Then you got the Elite Merc, good all-rounder. Merciless Brawler, so a good close range sort of guy. Titanic Gunner, one of the toughest units in the game. Very expensive though, and has a very good reaction. Good for sitting in the middle of the board and just locking down a whole area, but very expensive. Grizzled Sharpshooter is a sniper, so he does moderate damage, but the main thing that he's got going is that his actions allow allies to move a little bit. So he's kind of like a shoot in the back, but then nudge people forward. The Hound, which we talked about before, Gene Twister. So it gives a big bonus per objective marker that you can control. And there's a tactical card that lets you put down extra objectives markers if you want to make this even easier to get. Brutal Gargantuan. Never loses more than 1 health from an attack, so excellent tank. Medic. Yeah, so I could go through all of these. And this is where the detailed texture comes in the game, is that all of these different specialists and sort of putting together your team that balances right. Palantir just like doing weird stuff. So this guy's got 3 actions, but no reaction. Yeah. So this is Double Tap. Hopefully, I'll get it out next month into people's hands. And the game is effectively a stack of cards. Once you've got the stack of cards, you can then use your own models if you've got them. But I'm also selling models, so you'll be able to. I'm 3D printing some, so particularly if you're Australia, it's a little more accessible. But otherwise, you can support me on Patreon. If you, for members, you can vote on what miniatures I'm going to sculpt each month, and every month I will send out characters to you. Also on the Patreon, if you don't want to become a member, I have a shop here where you can buy the STL files, and you can just take these down to a local 3D printing company. There are so many small boutique 3D printing companies, or mates with a 3D printer, and you can print these out yourself. I've also got a My Mini Factory store if you're really into that. But yeah, the goal of this is I want a game that's cheap, easy to get into. I just want people to get out there, have fun. You don't need to spend mountains of money like you do on a lot of these other skirmish games. Yeah, I've been really enjoying it. Hopefully one day I'll get a battle report out, but as you guys all know, I'm not exactly the best when it comes to videos, but I'm getting there. Cool. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a great day.